This is a very common question and a very common issue that I have when I'm guiding folks. It is the timing of when to set the hook when you're jigging for lake trout or when you think you have a lake trout on. Now, we're using electronics, we're using Garmin Livescope Plus, and we're using normal 2D off the Garmin, so it's not the best. But I'm gonna show you the whole timing in the foolproof way, semi-foolproof, way to learn how to and when to set the hook. Now we'll talk about gear real quick because that matters, and the hooks that we're using because that also matters. So right now we're using a fairly expensive rod. So it's a Shimano Vanford Reel 2500. The drag does matter on fish that want to run and a drag that can lock down and stay locked down. This is the G Loomis. This is the GCX 842S SJR. And this is a fast action rod. I prefer something a little bit slower, but is what it is. 15-pound Power Pro braid, and then we're running probably a 5-foot, 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, and we're running a normal J-style hook, right? So it's just a circular hook, and that's got no bend back, no nothing like that, nothing fancy going on. Because what's happening is we're chasing these fish to the surface, or they're chasing us to the surface. And that is a heavy-duty hook. Now, what you don't want to do is go to your local bass shop or your Bass Pro and go to your bass section and buy a bunch of wussy bass hooks. These fish will straighten them out. Guarantee, and there's nothing more sad than having a fish pop off the hook and you pull it up and the J is out like that. It's very sad. So we don't want to do that. So I want you guys to look up on the right-hand side there of my, my 2D screen there. So that's my jig going up and down. On the far right of that is what's called A-scope. So someone just asked me that. A-scope is the same thing, or amplitude scope. Same thing with Lowrance, Humminbird, and Garmin. I don't know about Simrad or the other ones. Just learn on Google search how to turn on A-scope on your machine, and that is going to give you the fastest feedback. And I would look right at that. Obviously I'm using Livescope, so I'm going to look at the other side of the screen. My drag is locked down. And everybody says, oh, you're going to break your line if your drag is locked down. That's not true. Here's a fish chasing me. That drag is locked to where I can barely pull the drag on that. Now there's a bunch of things I did there, and I'm not gonna replay it in slow motion. But let me show you real quick this fish. So even after all those hook sets, that fish unhooked himself. So the whole entire, their mouth, and if you can see in there, is pretty much all bone. Nice fish. Throw him back in. So what's happening when we are reeling away from a fish, and how I know this is because I've actually seen it on, I put an underwater camera on my line, and you can see them open their mouth and close on the bait. I'm going to show you on a big hook right here to make it a little more clear. Imagine this piece of paper, the fish's mouth. So their mouth is closed as they're chasing it all the way up, and at the very last second when they think they can eat it, they open their mouth on the hook and then close it. Now you're going to feel that on a semi-sensitive bass rod, or basically these two bass rods. You're going to feel that, and you're going to want to set the hook. Now if they have the opportunity to say, open their mouth just a little bit, when you set the hook, it's going to come flying right out, and you're like, oh, I keep missing these fish. They keep short striking. That is not the case. What you want to do is let them close on it and keep reeling away from them, so you're burying the tip of the hook in. You're still not even setting into that very heavy duty barb. This is obviously bigger than that one I'm using. What you want to do is keep reeling until you feel full pressure and you've moved that fish a couple of feet. Then you want to set the hook into him. It is a fraction of a second when those two things happen, and that takes practice. So I'll show you another one real quick. And I've lost a bunch of fish today, and I started doing it myself, and there's some days where they're just short striking and they're being really annoying, and this is the best way to fix that, especially when they're chasing. Dropping right down there on 2D, and we're gonna hold it above bottom. Our drag is locked to the point where it's almost cutting into our hands. That is key. We want, if you match the right rod to the right jig and the right line, you shouldn't have any issues. You shouldn't be breaking anything. What normally happens with lake trout is the break off is they bite through it. Oh, oh, I stopped on that one. See that one? I reeled into it and then I lifted. That's a decent sized one too. So it may seem counterproductive. Start that chase, reel towards the surface, let them completely load that rod up. When it's bent over like this, keep reeling to move that fish a little bit, bury that point in a little bit more, and then let them have the juice and whale him. Oh, he just swam out of my net because it wasn't, oh, there he goes. Popped him off anyways. Having the right hooks that matter. If you want to use lake trout style hooks, visit benditfish.com. And same with the baits that we're using in this video. These are just little 2-inch lake trout swim baits. Another huge thing is keep your hand on the reel. I don't know if I've said that already. Keep your hand on the reel. I've had so many clients that dilly-dallying like this where they're sleeping and a fish will come up on 2D or even on Livescope, and once they see you, it's already too late. Because once they see you, they're expecting you to run because you want to act as normal as possible, because any sort of big fish comes up behind a small fish, that small fish better run away. Otherwise, lake trout are like, ah, that's suspicious. Something's up. We want to keep that jig above the bottom. Oh, right, that one I just messed up there. Let's see if he wants to go. He wants to go. Oh, he changed his mind. There's 3 or 4 of them coming back in, so we're going to drop again. Still recording 120. See, rod's bent over. I mean, that rod is corked over. That's a bigger fish. Enough to steer the Livescope around. Perfect. That's what we want. Reel into them, move that fish. Oh no. Even with all that hook setting, guys, the hook still popped out. They have such bony mouths most of the time. I always say, actually, not most of the time, probably 30% of the fish I have aren't fully hooked, even with all of that pressure. That's why I horse them to the surface or use a stiffer rod like a big bait caster. I actually like using bait casters more. There's another one. Whale them. You can also let them burp on the way up. Makes it better for the fish. That fish just burped. Whoa, and that one's off too. Even that. If I had the net on the right side of the boat, that probably would have been better. Let's do that. As soon as you see that fish on 2D, start reeling away. That's gonna, as soon as they bite it, it's gonna load that rod up. Keep reeling into them. It's a little bit easier with the bait caster because you're basically reeling 5 pounds of fish away or 10 pounds of fish away like this one. Oh, slack mind me. Come on. Come on, get in the net. That one's actually in the net, and I'll show you how that one's actually hooked. And the hook was just barely in there. There he is. All inside that mouth is all. If you take a lot of fish home, you'll kind of get, you know, a chance to put them on the cutting board and see their anatomy. But the best way that I can explain it is their entire mouth is like, put your is like the roof of your mouth. It's all kind of bony. It's all kind of those ribs and stuff in there. It's really, really hard to hook or get a hook into them. Wider gap hooks are a little bit better because they end up in the outside lip here. That makes a big difference. Backbone on your rod makes a big difference. I like ones that are 50-50, 50% backbone. Ones that have a really fast tip, like if the rod was just all tip like that, does not help you because those fish tend to roll. And even though that fish is, that you say you hook the fish, the hook is just stuck. It's not fully penetrated into the fish's mouth. So hopefully that answers a lot of the questions on why I keep losing fish or why people keep losing fish or short striking. See them, run away, reel into them, set the hook. And as over time, as you hook more and more fish, you'll get that timing faster so you don't have to crank into them a little bit more because it looks kind of silly and it's a lot of stress on your equipment doing it that way. If you want to see more lake trout how-to videos, click here. If you want to see more, like that's the summer series playlist is right there. If you want to see more content, come right over here. And I'll see you in one of those next videos.